Wow. If that doesn't get you in the mood for justness, I don't know what will. Welcome. Greetings. Good evening, everybody. My name is Martin Whittaker. I'm the CEO of the Just Capital Foundation. Speaking very quickly because we're already 2 minutes over time and I've only just started. It's my high honor and privilege to welcome you all here tonight to celebrate with us the launch of the Just 100 for 2017 with our partners and friends at Forbes. Randall and team, thank you. Chapeau. This has been the culmination of a long journey for us. I think it was Victor Hugo said, there's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come, and that's exactly what we have right now, an idea whose time has come. We need to build a more just marketplace in America today. We have to get business working for all Americans. We have to connect that down to Main Street, and that's what Just Capital's mission is. That's what we're going to do. We've really here not to celebrate us or Just, it's really to celebrate the companies. I'm very happy to say there are over 30 companies represented here tonight. You'll see them by the badges. We have CEOs and senior executives from all the Just 100 companies that we're in discussions with. Our number one CEO is being interviewed tonight, Krzanich. It's the best pickup line I've ever had, by the way, a couple of weeks ago when I saw Brian and said, hey, my name's Martin Whittaker, I'm with Just Capital. I may be able to put you on the cover of Forbes. My wife is here tonight. She'll tell you that's the best pickup line that I've ever had. I'd like to invite you, please give them a round of applause, the companies themselves, for their leadership. For Just Capital, we're working with some of the best family offices, foundations, research organizations in the country to try and deliver on our mission. As you know, as you've seen, none of this means you have to sacrifice returns. You know, our investable index is up 2.5% over the last year relative to its benchmark. Being just is good for business, period, end of. And if you follow Just closely, you'll know that Goldman Sachs last night filed to build the first ETF off a Just index. Now, if you've seen that, and we're just getting started here, by the way, so lots more to come. If you've seen that crazy video on TED about the movement, the guy dancing and how a movement gets started, you'll know it's not the first guy who starts, it's the second and the third ones in. That's what validates a movement. That's what sparks a real movement. And that's why I want to thank the people who've come in to support us in our crazy dancing, starting with Sullivan & Cromwell, our polling partners, Nork, Glassdoor, our friends at MIT, Yale, Columbia, Darden, Y&R, you guys have done amazing work. Matt Kelly, you've seen the website, it's phenomenal. Berlin Rosen, Korn Ferry, all of our sponsors and funders. Our board, I'm blessed to have the most amazing board of directors. Ariana, thank you. Dan, thank you. I know there are many board members in the room. Ronaldo, you were there at the birth of Just Capital. Thank you for your commitment and ongoing support. We can't do it without you. I want to thank the team. I know how hard you guys work. I'm going to fill up and start tearing up if I think about it too hard, but I'm really honored and proud to work with you. You have such grace under pressure. It's phenomenal. And most of all, I want to thank our chair, Mr. Paul Tudor Jones, without whom none of this would be possible. So I'm going to invite Paul up now to say a few words to you all as well. Thank you. Please join me in giving him a warm welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Martin, my Canadian friend who immigrated here when it was in a time when it was actually safe to do so. Thanks to Forbes. Many of you know this is the 100th anniversary of Forbes. They were created in 1917. That makes them the only only smart thing in the economic world older than Alan Greenspan. Randall, where are you? What a great job. And then finally, most importantly, our staff, oh my Lord, and our staff has worked so incredibly hard. The rankings that we're doing, just so everyone understands, we're ranking the 1,000 largest companies in the world based on the American public's concept of justness. It's the most difficult quantitative exercise I've ever been associated with in my entire life, including all the modeling and algorithms that we do for our trading on Wall Street. It's still a work in progress. We're trying to accurately, as our board all knows, we're trying to be just honest journalists. We're trying to accurately portray what the American public thinks is a concept of justness. And then congratulations to all the companies that are here tonight that we're honoring that are in the Just 100. What I can tell you, if I had to make one market forecast, we're going to have a Just 100 ETF. Probably we're going to start with a Just 500 this spring. We'll have a Just 100 in 2 years. And my prediction is that Just 100 ETF in about 5 or 10 years' time will be the third largest ETF behind the S&P 500, behind the NASDAQ. And we'll look back in the early companies that were in the Just 100. This will be like a badge of honor, unlike no other. It'll be like having a Super Bowl trophy in your trophy closet, because it really is, I think, going to change the way, the dialogue that exists today on Wall Street, change the way that goes on in the future. How do we all get here tonight? We got here because a little over 4 years ago, I got a call from Deepak Chopra, and Deepak said, you know, I have this university student. He's got this great idea. And the idea is, what if we got companies to take their capital, their investment? What if we got them to, instead of thinking just about profits, thought about doing just things? Instead of doing well, also do good. And I thought, God, that's actually a great idea. Simple, elegant, and it's great. And then I made some phone calls to some other friends who called a friend of a friend, a friend of a friend. The next thing, we have a board, and we have a staff, we have a committed bunch of people, and the next thing, here we are today. And we all feel like we're on a mission, and a mission that might be the most important mission in certainly many of our philanthropic lives. Just to put things in perspective, total philanthropy in the United States is $360 billion. And we're always thinking about, wow, if we can just get the public sector to match. I know at Robin Hood, we're thinking if we can get the city to match us. Well, the public sector is $4 trillion, so that's a pretty big elephant. But the biggest elephant is the private sector, $18 trillion. If we can just move it just a little bit, 2%, it equals all public philanthropy in a year. So we're going to hopefully change the dialogue and start talking about something other than just profits. When you think about the universe, when it comes to corporate engagement, is you have shareholders, you have employees, customers, communities, and the environment. Those are the 5 stakeholders that exist in the world today. And just so we all know, what has happened, and the reason why we have the greatest wealth disparity in the history of this country right now, because most of the shareholders today also happen to be the wealthiest people in the world. Profit margins have gone from 40 years ago, 6% to 12% today. Labor share has gone from 66% of revenue down to 54%. So we've had this massive reallocation of wealth concentrated into a very small number of people. And it's causing huge tears in our society. And what this is going to do is hopefully begin the dialogue to find an equalization, something that doesn't tear our society apart, an equalization between shareholders on the one hand and those other 4 important stakeholders, employees, customers, communities, and the environment. So that's what tonight is about. And I'm so privileged, I'm so excited that we're going to have Intel's chief here, Brian Krzanich. Intel, we almost weren't going to have Intel in the rankings because I couldn't pronounce his damn last name, and nobody could spell it either. I mean, but I'm so excited to have him come up here and have Stephanie Ruhle also to interview him. I can't wait to hear that conversation. Just if I had two requests to the companies that are here, if I had two, on bended knee, I have this request. We have a Just Seal. By the way, we polled. Like we polled everything. My God, if we poll what we're going to have for lunch, we poll everything. And that seal was out of, I forget how many hundred we tried, that was the one that the American public absolutely loved. So that seal, we know, has already won a bunch of beauty contests. If you could take that seal, please, and put it on any part of your product so that we can begin the corporate competition for goodness. What we want is 5 years from now, you go to buy a box of cornflakes and one of them has the seal and one doesn't, and we choose that just company. If we could encourage our corporate partners tonight, or our award winners, to use that seal, it will do a great service, social service, maybe the best social service you'll ever do, of promoting this dialogue. With no further ado, let me introduce my friend Stephanie Ruhle, MSNBC, NBC, and a most just woman.
Brian, here we go. Paul, thank you so much. Paul deserves a round of applause. This is a truly great American. And I mean, Paul's sense of optimism, he thought when he first heard Brian's last name, he couldn't pronounce it. He still can't. And my one message to corporations tonight, remember, if the GOP tax bill goes through, you boys and girls are getting really hooked up. So individuals who will no longer be able to deduct those charitable contributions, my friends, it's your turn. Brian, congratulations.
Thank you.
This is an absolute honor.
Huge honor. For us, I mean, we clearly don't think about winning an award like this. We're just doing our jobs, right?
Well, you're doing it well. When you think about what Just Capital is, or Just ethos is, just do better. That's the message to business. What's your ethos? You've been at Intel for 35 years. So this company is in your blood, but now you're leading it.
You know, I was raised by Andy Grove, who taught me, and it's in our basic values as a corporation, which is do the right thing. And there's often times we come back to a problem and we always ask ourselves, you know, no matter how painful it might be to make that decision in that direction, what's doing the right thing? So that's kind of how we were raised and how we think about almost everything we approach.
Then what do you want your message or your legacy to be at Intel?
For me personally, I love this company. It's a company I was born in, and as you said, 35 years, it's in my blood. We talk about bleeding blue, Intel blue, right? So I want to be the person who changed Intel for the future and changed every part of Intel. You know, we are coming up on our 50th anniversary. It's actually April of next year. We'll be 50 years old as a corporation. And we started as a company that has a singular product, and I think everybody knows us about the PC, right? But we've had to go through a massive transformation of, you know, as the PC kind of, that business leveled off, and what we believe we've gone through one of the biggest business transformations in almost the history of business. We went from a company that was 75% of our revenue was the PC, and we're now less than 50%. And other products, the data center and artificial intelligence have overcome and taken over those. And so we've done that transformation, but at the same time, we've done our whole workforce, how we think about our place in the community, and how we think about our employees. All of that has shifted dramatically.
Let's talk about that, because when you think about Just Capital taking American values and then looking at corporate America and seeing how corporations truly think about what's important to the American people and apply it to their companies. There's been a huge shift even in the last 10 years. A lot of these things are, I don't know, areas that used to sit in as a focus for human resources. or corporate social responsibility, but now these are issues that matter to you. So when you lead your company, when you lead businesses, are things like inequality and diversity. Everybody loves to talk about those things, and every company out there has a women's initiative and a conference and an event, but when the rubber hits the road and you're actually running your business, talk about these types of initiatives and where they're actually moving.
Yeah, you know, at Intel, we had worked for 10 years on all of those. We've had a diversity report for 10 years that we've published. And if you look at the data on that report, it was pretty flat. The role of women, the role of minorities, it wasn't shifting. And I actually was a significant part. I ran all of Intel's manufacturing before I became CEO. I had 2/3 of the company's population. And I always felt like it wasn't for lack of trying. We were trying. But there was something always blocking us. So when I became CEO, you know, I think these are unique jobs, and you have an opportunity in these jobs to do something special. That you're there as an engineer, and you're there to lead the shareholder value, but you are also there to do something special. And I have 2 daughters. They're both very technical. One's a freshman at Stanford in engineering, and the other one's a sophomore in high school and in the highest levels of math and science. And I just looked at the effort we'd done and thinking about my daughters, and you add all of that up, and I said, the right thing to do is to figure out how to solve this. So we took an engineering approach. We said the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set a goal, because every engineer goes out. What we do at Intel is Moore's Law. We don't know how we're going to do it every 2 years, but we go out and engineer it. So we set a goal and said by 2020, women and URMs, underrepresented minorities, will be fully represented at the company in every level. So every job grade, which means that, you know, there will be women or underrepresented minorities at the highest levels all the way through, based on their representation.
Is it a luxury to get to focus on those kind of things? Intel is an extraordinarily successful company, and lots of companies would love to do the right thing, but they can't get themselves over the hump to really apply long-term strategies, because whether we're talking about personal lives, politics, or business, very few seem to be able to get to that long-term decision-making place. In business, you've got shareholders banging down your door. You've got customers that want lower prices. And as much as you want to make great long strides and moves, I've never listened to an investor call where a single analyst has said, hey, so you doing much with those minorities these days? When Carl Icahn comes a knockin', he doesn't ask you those things. And how do you balance the two?
You do have to put things into their categories and deal with those other things. But working on things like diversity and representation doesn't cost money. And we believe, and I have some great anecdotes of examples. If you're trying to build products for the population and your organization doesn't look like the population, chances are your products won't work for that population.
Give us an example.
So we were working on a wearable. This is one of the best examples. And we were trying to figure out how to charge this wearable. And the problem was that having a plug would have made the thing too big and too bulky. And so we were sitting there thinking, and we had a couple of women on the team who were out of the room at the time, and they walked in and they heard us having this discussion, and they quickly said, well, this is easy. I throw my jewelry in a bowl every night. Why don't you just make a bowl that will charge these wearable devices? So literally a bunch of the guys went out and bought taco chip bowls, and we started wrapping wire around it and building a charging mechanism, and we were able to charge these wearable devices. And it was a genius, simple solution, and I'm sure all the women in the room were sitting there going, well, yeah, that was simple. We would have never come up with it. Never in a million years as a group of men. And that's going to build a product that now the population that is out there really will want, right? And so it's simple things like that even are examples where it gives you a better business result.
Then what is your advice to CEOs out there who 16 times a day are looking at their share prices, are evaluating every single Wall Street analyst and what they're saying, thinking, breathing about their company because it's super common. Just a month ago, Bank of America, I want to say downgraded or put a neutral rating on Chipotle because Chipotle decided to pay their employees more money. Paying employees at a fast casual restaurant more money should be a net positive. But when you're pairing that against Wall Street analysts saying, nope, $1 more an hour is just too much, talk to us, talk to the people in the room who run companies who can't seem to get over that hump.
So I would say the first thing, there's a couple of ways you have to think about that. One, all of our companies are built on the people that are in that company. And so if you have to treat them, and anybody who's in the innovation space, you're not only just built on the people and treating them well and having them come to work fully engaged, you're looking for the best minds. When you're looking at something like building an artificial intelligence platform, you're selecting the best people from the best schools. So that long term is what's going to build your company and your company value. You have to go get those people, and that means you have to go treat them in the best way.
Then do you feel a sense of responsibility for that forgotten American? Because you're a huge manufacturer, and the forgotten American might be the best person, but he or she didn't get to go to the best school. And in an age of artificial intelligence, which you speak about, machine learning, automation, is not going to put people back to work.
Well, so absolutely. I mean, first, every time we faced a structural shift by technology, you go back to when engines and combustion engines were first built and electricity, everybody said,
buggy,
right,
car.
Everybody said the world was going to end, there was going to be no more employment, and actually every one of those created more jobs. So I believe things like artificial intelligence will actually create more opportunity over the time. That said, absolutely, we've got to go in and work with the communities and get people who don't necessarily have that exposure, that awareness of what the jobs of the future are, and we have to get them exposed. And so we have programs with, for example, Oakland Unified School District, where we're going in, and these people don't have a computer, many of them don't even have a cell phone in their house, and we're giving them exposure to this world. We're giving them summer jobs and getting them through college. We're paying them to go attend college.
Do you believe the jobs of the future, while they are going to disrupt the workforce, do you believe it's going to create more jobs?
Oh,
because
absolutely.
There's a fear that in the manufacturing world, when companies have more money, they're going to spend it, they're going to use their R&D dollars to get rid of jobs.
Well, no, Intel's one of the largest manufacturers in the U.S. still. We produce 75% of what we do in the U.S. We export 75% of what we build outside the U.S. So
that's awesome.
We are very proud of our manufacturing footprint in the U.S. That is all driven by innovation. So if you take a look at the number of engineers I'm hiring to go build that innovation and be competitive in the U.S., it's constantly increasing, and we're trying to get the best minds from those schools. So I believe that as you said, there's a hidden genius in those schools and those communities that hasn't been exposed, but that doesn't mean that inside them isn't burning this capability. And by going out and exposing them, we may find one of those people, and who knows what they'll create for us 10, 15 years from now. So we have that, and that excitement in the whole organization then creates, an energy in the rest of the organization as well to want to go do that, to be able to be a part of that.
Then what is on top of mind for you for 2018? Clearly, 2017, getting this award is an amazing way to end the year.
It's amazing.
When the average person talks about corporate America, I don't know that they get their head around what it takes to get this kind of award from Just. It means you really matter.
Yeah, when we were flying here today, I was reminded that what I really have become today is the most embarrassing father at my daughter's school. But it is a huge honor, and as I said at the beginning, we just set out to just do what we think is right. For 18, we actually pulled our goal in. So we'd originally said we'd hit full representation of women and underrepresented minorities by 2020. We've made such good progress that we pulled that in. We've publicly stated we'll pull it into the end of 2018.
Wow.
So, and we're doing that for one reason, because when you go out and listen to the tech industry, they'll tell you there's not a pipeline, there isn't availability, it's too hard to do, and we're just going to go. As a good engineers, we just set out to go do it, and then now that'll be gone, right? People will be able to say, well, they did it, it must be doable. And it's not a small company. It's 100,000 people, 55,000 of which are in the U.S. They can't argue. So that's number one. Number two is, we're continuing to grow and transform our company into the, technology of the future. We think we have a lot of opportunity there. And then overall, we're continuing to think about ways to really drive enthusiasm in our workforce, because, again, for us, they're the ones who are going to create those genius products that you guys are all going to use and love.
Then your final word, what is your piece of advice for every CEO, every company out there? Every company wants to be great. Intel was already great. You helped make it good. For companies that are now saying, I want to be good, what's your piece of advice?
I think what I'd say is that, first, just remember that we spend a lot of time on our business strategies, but if you don't spend an equal amount of time on your cultural strategy, what you want your business culture to be, then those have to support each other. And you need to spend equal time on that and really think about how they're going to get you where you want to be 5, 7 years from now. The second thing is, one of the things that I think has made us successful at this is we took an engineering approach. We set goals, we set targets, we measure ourselves. Every week I get a report of the hiring profile in our organization, what we've hired, women versus African Americans versus Hispanics versus white males, and how many people have left. What's our turnover in each one of those? Every week. And it's broken down by business segment and everything. So we made this an engineering project such that it's now measurable and you can go and achieve what you want to get out of your organization.
You're embracing your nerd.
I'm embracing my nerd.
Ryan, thank you so much. Paul, thank you. Have to go. See you soon.
I'm Randall Lane. I'm the Chief Content Officer at Forbes Media, and we are very, very proud to be partnered with Just Capital tonight. First, I want to congratulate again Brian. Congratulations, #1 on the Just 100. But actually, there are two things we're honoring. First, #1 on the Just 100. Second, he's the most CEO-looking CEO in the 100-year-old history of Forbes. So congratulations on that as well. So that's two honors tonight. Out in the hallway before in this lovely reception at this lovely event, a bunch of people have asked, how did Just and Forbes get together? And I have two reasons. One, people. First person, Paul. Paul asked us to be partners, and anyone who knows Paul knows that there's no such thing as an ask. I mean, Paul asked, but Paul has that, that look in his eye, and it is going to get done, and he's asking, but there's never really a question of what we're going to do. And we said, yes, sir, we're behind this. Second, the people behind the whole staff of Just Capital, Martin Whittaker, and the whole team here, you see it tonight in what they've accomplished. And they work, I could tell you as someone who's proudly on the board of Just Capital as well, they work so hard, and they are sitting there, and whenever I go in the office, they are there in the morning, they are there in the night, they are crunching the numbers. So it's the people that help make this list come to life. So the first reason is people. Second reason is we're Forbes. It's numbers. The data behind this, if anybody spends any time with the Just website, is unbelievable. Millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours have gone into this data set. It is an unbelievable measure of corporate America that's unprecedented, and we're proud to be behind it. I mean, Forbes always is about lists, and we're always about numbers. And listen, we've been looking at corporations for our whole 100-year history. There's a certain other magazine that measures 500 companies, and somehow they've decided that the most important way to measure a company is sales. And I will tell you right now that I could start a $1 billion company right now. We could have a $1 trillion company. I could have $1 trillion in sales tomorrow if I sell $2 trillion worth of goods for $1 trillion. So I'm not sure that sales is the way to measure. Forbes about 20, 30 years ago said, why don't we measure by market cap? We'll measure by profits. We'll measure sales. We'll measure book value, other things. But you know what? Even we've been playing with the Forbes 2000 for 30 years, and I don't think we have it right either. I think these guys, the Just Capital guys, the Just 100 got it right because they're measuring America's companies by what Americans want out of their corporate citizens, and it so happens that those companies outperform the average American company. So that's the true measure of a company that services its shareholders, its customers, its community, its employees, and the environment. So that's what we're here to celebrate. That's what we're here to talk about. So we're proud to be part of it, and I'm proud to introduce our next panel, ABC's Rebecca Jarvis. Where are you? Rebecca's right here, and we're going to talk about balancing priorities in the C-suite. Rebecca, let her go.
Thanks, appreciate it. All right, thank you so much for having me, Paul, Randall, Martin. I want to invite our whole panel up to the floor now. Broussard is the CEO of Humana. Jay Carney is the Senior Vice President of Corporate Affairs with Amazon. Andrea Ferrara is Senior Vice President of Human Resources at PepsiCo. And Mary Snapp is Corporate Vice President and Head of Microsoft Philanthropies. As everybody joins us up here, a little bit of background on this group. Everybody in this group is a member of the C-suite, varying levels, and everybody is representing a company that is best in class, top of its industry as a just company. And I want to start with the decisions and the decision-making process inside of your companies, and in particular, and Bruce, we can kick things off with you. In this last year, the most important but difficult decision you have had to make inside of your company to make it a more just company.
There's a few of them that we've done, but I'll stick to one, and that's really around how we've had to reorganize the organization to really support associates in their job training. We've found that job training in the organization is one of the most important aspects. And being able to move individuals that today would not have a job if we didn't help them be able to deal with some of the growth that's required in people's education. And we've found that we've had to take profits out of the organization to invest in that for the longer term.
And how have you dealt with that pushback, and where specifically did it come from?
It's come throughout the organization. I mean, let's face it, our operators are paid on their budgets, and so it comes from that perspective. Our CFO represents the constituencies out there that are pushing for profits and growth in profits. And we've had to sort of, let me back up here and say, when we sit in a meeting, there's a lot of times when we're talking about decisions like this, I always go back and say, our responsibility as a leadership team is to leave this place a better place than we came. And I said, we were fortunate to be sitting in this room today as a result of decisions that were made 10, 15, 20 years ago that allowed a company to have a great brand, to recruit a great group of individuals, including my leadership team, to have customers that join us, and to be able to have a value proposition for society and a value proposition for our customers. And I said, and that's our responsibility. Our responsibility isn't just to maximize profits, because that's easy. It's really how do you...
That's easy?
It's easy if you just focus on that. And I mean that because in the short run, you can maximize profits very easily by cutting costs, by cutting your R&D, by cutting innovation, by cutting your marketing, and cutting benefits to your employees. But in the long run, that doesn't build a strong company. And it's harder to have those healthy tensions that you are debating, how do I make investments in the long run while still having short-term sustainability. And I think that is the toughest thing for leaders. And I find when we sort of sit back and say, what's our focus long-term? What is our responsibility? The decisions become, they're not easier, but they become clearer because people are looking not just at the short term, they're looking at the longer term.
I'm going to flip it to Andrea because I didn't intentionally put the women last.
Oh, no,
I just,
okay.
but inside of PepsiCo, you deal with human resources, you deal with the people. Obviously, people are very important. What challenges have you faced and what difficult, important decisions have you made in the last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to what Bruce said, I mean, I think it's this balance of investing in the business and continuing to invest in your talent and your people. And I think for us, you know, we take a very strong approach on building capability, but we also, so it's building capability of our talent, but also building kind of the well-being of our people. And so, you know, when you make investments in those kind of flexible policies or you know, giving people more flexibility to work from home or telecommuting, it costs money to do that. But for us, it really is about you want to help people manage through their entire life cycle. And I think that's something that good and just companies figure out how to do. And I actually think it's going to be a point of differentiation, particularly as you have more and more generations and more different cohorts in the workplace. But it is a push because you come out with these programs and these policies and you get pushback from the management team. Oh, it's not easy for us to work when people are remote or when we give people flexible time. And so it's a challenge and a push, but it's something that at PepsiCo we take pride in and we're not going to back down.
Mary, in terms of overseeing philanthropies inside of Microsoft, one of the core takeaways from Just Capital's polling is that corporate decisions that are being made around the core business operations are just as or even more important than traditional corporate philanthropy. And Microsoft has really integrated philanthropy into its entire business model. How did that go down, and what's the right way to do it?
Well, I think there's lots of legacy here. As you know, Bill Gates started thinking about philanthropy in the very early days due to, I think, a lot of discussions with his mother, who really encouraged him very early on to start a giving campaign in the company over 30 years ago. So it's been a core part of how we've thought about things for quite a long time. But in the last couple of years, I think we really have doubled down. And we made a couple of decisions in doing that. We made a very explicit decision to stay within the corporation, to not create a separate foundation. And we did that because we wanted to bring the best assets. We wanted to bring the technology. We wanted to bring the marketing. We wanted to be able to advocate side by side on issues along with our philanthropy. And we wanted to bring our technology. And we wanted to put all those together to bring those assets together. And if I could just give you a quick example of a recent one that I am just so excited about, we last July announced the Rural Air Band Initiative. Our president, Brad Smith, launched this in July of last year. You may not know it, but 23.4 million Americans in the United States still do not have access to broadband, still. And there's just no way that we can move forward in this age of innovation and with the fourth industrial revolution with people who are being left behind at this basic level. So we made a commitment to bring 2 million people online in the next 5 years, and we asked other companies to join us. We put technology out there, we open sourced it. So when we get to this point, we're announcing projects in 12 states in the next 12 months. And we are bringing together some technology with the specs that we are open sourcing. We are actively engaged in policy issues because there are FCC issues associated with that, using unlicensed TV spectrum, a new technology, to bring broadband. We are bringing philanthropy with a new partnership with the National 4-H, who reaches many of the counties in which we know that broadband isn't there. So we're bringing technology, we're bringing biz dev, we're bringing advocacy, and we're bringing philanthropy to try to address this issue in a holistic way, and we're inviting others to join us.
Why do you think corporate giving is at a 30-year low?
You asking me?
Yes.
I'm really proud of our giving, actually. But I also think it's a mistake to think about just cash. Because I think you have to think about, at Microsoft, again, we have 650,000 hours of volunteer time in the last year. We're really working hard to get our employees to change that into skills-based volunteering. I mean, we're doing some really innovative programs to try to do that. We've donated over $1 billion in software and in cloud services. And as Jay knows, cloud does not come without costs. That comes with services infrastructure, it comes with data center. There are real significant costs associated with that. And we know that our nonprofits need to move to the cloud if they're going to have and be able to provide the best services to their clients. So I think you've got to step back and look at it a little bit more broadly than cash, more than a checkbook.
Jay, first off, corporate giving. Why is it at a 30-year low? What could be done differently?
Well, that's a great question that I can't answer because I didn't realize it was at a 30-year low. I think that's unfortunate, honestly. I know it's not, the trajectory is going in the other direction where I work, and I know that because we're right next to each other, neighbors in Seattle, in greater Seattle, that Microsoft does an extraordinary amount and invests a lot in directly through cash and other means through philanthropies. So I don't know the answer to that, and I think it's a shame, honestly. Not because, I think it goes back to what Brian said and what others have said earlier tonight, that doing the right thing or doing good is also, if you're focused on long-term thinking as a business proposition, it also is a good business thing to do. It's the right way to invest. It's the right way to think about your employees and your communities. I wanted to answer the earlier question you had about a decision, and ours wasn't on the scale of some of these other initiatives, but it was unusual and quirky. And we announced earlier this year at Amazon, a handful of us went in to see Jeff Bezos, the CEO, with an idea to build on something we've been doing to address homelessness in Seattle on a short-term basis, with the idea of adding a homeless shelter into one of our headquarters buildings as we were building these towers in downtown Seattle. Jeff loved the idea, in part because he had seen when we had temporarily donated a motel to a homeless shelter on the same properties right next to our headquarters, that it had completely energized our employees. And to me, that is high value, right? We got a lot of great feedback from our employees when we first engaged with this shelter, who loved the fact that we weren't just writing a check to help a homeless shelter or to help add beds to a homeless shelter, but we were actually putting them right next to our headquarters and now literally inside our headquarters, and saying that we want you here and we want to be part of that. And the scale is not enormous, but it's really inspired Amazonians, and it's led us to begin homelessness initiatives in other cities where we have a big presence. So I think that kind of thing is meaningful, because getting your employees passionate about what you do is very important, and they feel better about the place that they work. They volunteer, and in companies like ours, where they have tremendous skills that they can provide pro bono, the benefits for folks who are in need can be very high.
Well, it raises a really interesting point. Gallup came out with a poll, and they consistently are looking at employee engagement. And what they found is that 70% of employees in the US right now aren't working up to their full potential. 52% are sleepwalking through their day. 18% of them are actively trying to undermine their company. They're the ones who send you the email with the virus in it that you open and then send to everyone else in the company. But you raise an interesting point, Jay, about engaging people inside of the company and making them feel like they're doing something even bigger than just maybe going to work every day. What kinds of things, Bruce, for example, at Humana, are you doing to motivate and engage employees more?
Well, your numbers shock me, because that's depressing, actually. We have found engagement, and our engagement scores are about 89 to 93%. So we have had just wonderful engagement scores. And we've found a few things. First, a deep, deep purpose. We've found that having a purpose around your business model is really important. And we have this goal that we established a few years ago, in 2014, to improve the community's health by 20% by 2020 through making it easier for people to achieve their best health. And every year we publish a report on that goal. We call it the BOLD goal, and how we progress. And that progression is made, there's a CDC measurement called Healthy Days. And it's a measurement that they survey various different communities. And we've taken different communities in our organization, some geographic, some customer base, and our employees, and we measure those. And publishing that report gives a clear understanding of why we are what we do. And that's the first thing. The second thing is the strong values. And we really reinforce our values in the way we work and the way we we act. And I have to lead that in a very, very direct way. And just recently, it was a few weeks ago, we had a town hall, and it was webcast, and we had about 5,000 people on that call. And there was a joke that was made, which I couldn't believe one of our associates made on stage. And it was, wow, what do I do with this? It's one of those things that you sit there and say, this is really not going well. So you shut it down, and you do it politely and everything.
You shut it down on stage in front of everyone?
No, I didn't. What I did is we closed the meeting in an orderly fashion. I went down to our HR department and I said, fire it. And we had to let them go. And it was one of those times that you sit there and say, you're going to really test your values as a result of that. And the next day I wrote a letter and said, I really apologize for what happened at the town hall. I take responsibility for it, and we've dealt with the circumstances, and that was it. I had someone last night, I was at a dinner engagement with some of our customers, and she came up and she said, wow, I really, really feel safe in this organization as a result of that decision. And to me, you set values and you don't put them on a card, and you don't put them on the wall and so on, and only leave them there. You have to act it every day. And I have found that over the years, those values have been tested. And when you use those values to make decisions, it both reestablishes the values and it really allows the organization to be stronger. And I have found that to be probably the most successful thing in being able to keep an organization that's engaged. And our organization, for many of you know, has gone through some times over the last few years because we were in a merger agreement that ultimately broke. And we maintained our engagement scores during that period of time. And I really believe it's a result of our culture and believing in those values and continuing to maintain that direction going forward.
Andrea, I see you shaking your head yes.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think, you know, for PepsiCo, we have worked so hard for so many years to really embed those values. We've got 260,000 employees. We operate in over 200 countries. And trying to have a consistent set of values across that size and scale, it actually takes a fair amount of effort. You know, and one of the things that we do is every year we actually train all 260,000 people on our code of conduct. And we actually certify all 69,000 salaried professionals. And you know, it's top of mind, and to Bruce's point, it's how you operate and how you make decisions, and you never waver. We actually train our suppliers. 95% of our key suppliers actually go through the code of conduct training as well. But I think the other thing that we do, and the point you made on a safe space is so critical, we actually have a 24-hour, we call it the speak up line, but it's basically a hotline, and it's a safe place. And we actually encourage people to call. We encourage our employees to call, our suppliers to call, our customers to call. If you see something, please say something. And we take the investigations when we get these calls unbelievably seriously. And I think that resonates through, and that's the foundation. I mean, when you've got the values that embedded in your organization, when you hit a speed bump, that's your true north. You don't waffle, and you don't even flinch. You know exactly what to do. So I applaud you, and I hope that people believe PepsiCo's in the same place.
I want to talk about something that Paul raised, and it's something that also came up in the conversation with Brian and Stephanie, and it is this question about profits. In the last 40 years, profit margins 6 to 12%, but labor share 66 to 54% currently. How do you balance labor share with shareholders? That is the ultimate question facing so many public companies these days. Bruce, how do you think it through? And how do you make sure that you're focusing on your employees and the community around Humana such that the wealth disparity doesn't become so great that it becomes counter-effective, that essentially everything eventually is undermined by it?
I know many of you don't know the organization well, and our largest group of customers, his average income is less than $20,000. We service, of our $60 billion in revenue, 85% of it comes from Medicare Advantage. What we have found in that customer base is that social determinants are a very important part of their health. And so we spend a lot of time and energy in the local market in helping people with their social determinants. And we find that that's good business for us, and it's giving back to the community. And in our population, giving back to Healthy Days, we've determined that there's two social determinants that ultimately impact someone's health greatly: loneliness and food access. And so what we do with our providers, and we have a large about 10,000 nurses that go into people's homes on a regular basis. We look for that. And we then begin to, how can we use our support? We have a large foundation, and how can we use local communities to help engage these individuals, whether it's getting them food, to getting them and community services. And we have found, getting back to what was just said a minute ago, it is just so arousing for our employees to participate in that. And it's a win-win. I don't think it's mutually exclusive in this time. I think you can find a business model that succeeds and provides the ample returns to attract money and investment. And at the same time, you can hire employees and train them and develop a lifestyle for them to live, that they are content and happy, that then your customers are happy. And to me, it's a circle that once you are able to help with that, and there's tensions that you're always fighting with, but that circle is really powerful. And one party shouldn't overtake the other party. At times, maybe one does. Maybe we'll pay our employees more than we should, but you know what? Our customers will succeed, and once our customers succeed, then our shareholders will succeed, and the communities we serve will succeed. So I do think it's more of a circle than a silo in being able to make this. But it is tough on leaders, because leaders are so focused on what they got to deliver tomorrow, and you got to constantly remind them about the beacon. And I always say there's a reason why there's a human in Humana, is because we are really an organization that is oriented to the human side of the business world.
Jay, Amazon, clearly a lightning rod company, both a massive job creator, but also many would argue a massive jobs disruptor. How does Amazon think about that internally?
Well, I would say that what was said earlier about the long-term implications of automation and technological innovation producing more rather than fewer jobs is something history has proven out, and I think will prove out again. In our case, we can't be we're creating more jobs probably than any employer in the United States. We created 400,000 jobs globally since 2010. We have more than 200,000 American employees. We have announced early this year that we would hire 100,000 people in America in 18 months, and we're pretty far ahead of that schedule. We just announced not that long ago that we'd be building a second headquarters with 50,000 employees, and these are corporate employees, high-paid, high-skilled jobs. So we're, the automation we've engaged in hasn't slowed us down in terms of hiring folks, and in every level where we employ people, including in our fulfillment centers, which are warehouses, distribution centers, we pay better than department stores or other retail jobs. We have the best benefits in our sector, without even, being able to see in the distance where number 2 is, because we're also a tech company. We are a tech company, and we have to compete for tech talent with Microsoft and Google and Facebook and others, and so we have to, our benefits are gold-plated. So, and one of the pieces of our culture that I think is very important that comes from our CEO, which is that the starting employee in a fulfillment center at a starting wage gets the same healthcare benefits that Jeff Bezos and I get. There are no tiered benefits at Amazon. We think that's very important, and we recently, for competitive reasons and because it was the right thing to do, jacked up the quality of our benefits and created some innovative programs like ramp up and so ramp up and ramp down when you're either going on or coming off parental leave. You can do part-time as you adjust to the transition, or you can actually share your leave with your spouse if he or she doesn't get parental leave at his or her employer. So we'll pay for that, and that's again the right thing to do. But it's what we have to do to be competitive and to make sure that our employees are happy to be at Amazon and innovating on behalf of customers every day.
Record number of store closures this year. How does, I wonder how Amazon thinks about that.
I'm not. I'd say a couple of things about that. We started off in books, obviously long before I started at Amazon, and a lot has been talked about that, the impact of Amazon and other booksellers on the book market, and every marketplace is going to be subject to innovation that customers appreciate, or if they don't, those businesses don't succeed. What we've seen in the last few years, which is so counter to the narrative, is a dramatic increase in the number of independent bookstores in America, and in the double-digit percent increase. And Amazon has started building physical bookstores, which I guess is ironic, but it also reflects the fact that we believe, and we just got into the bricks and mortar grocery business, that retail is not a all online or all physical store proposition. It's both, and we think that you're going to succeed in these businesses if you deliver for customers. We're the customer centricity of our culture is pretty famous, and it's real. It's not just a slogan on a wall. It's what customers want. They don't just want to order online. They also want the serendipity of a physical store experience, and so you need to meet them where they are.
I know we're running short on time. Mary, before we go, when you are balancing that question internally at Microsoft, people versus shareholders, what wins? What's the point, the argument that wins?
I think a couple of things. You have to balance for the quarter, but you also know that where we're going with our technology and innovation, to be honest, jobs will be disrupted. We know that. And we know that we will not be trusted unless we help to provide that transition and bridge. So I look back to kind of a 15-year legacy on thinking about education and investments in education. And I think about the way that we every day talk about the importance of computer science education, not so that everybody can be an engineer, but so that people can have jobs in the 21st century. And finding that balance and transition between driving innovation forward and ensuring that we have a transition path for what we know is going to be job disruption, that's what wins.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Andrea, Mary, Jay, and Bruce. Great solutions. Congratulations. Just companies. Yeah.
I'm just going to wrap it up now. I will say thank you very much again for coming and supporting us. I want to leave you with one thought. For Just Capital, we cannot do what we do without you guys. We need your help. We need your support. We're open for business. We want to work with you. We are just getting warmed up here. All right? So thank you. Have a happy holidays. Safe journey home. We'll see you next year.